What evidence is needed to confirm that Buddha existed? Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Did Buddha truly exist in history? For many Buddhists, this question is considered heretical, something posed by non-believers, and is seen as a defamation of Buddhism. Their response is a firm affirmation that Shakyamuni Buddha was a real person who was born, attained enlightenment, and passed away in India over 2,600 years ago. This answer is taken for granted, and there are almost no individuals who intend to refute what has been widely accepted. However, it is necessary to carefully examine and provide a reasonable and accurate answer to the question of whether Shakyamuni Buddha truly existed or is merely a legend. To affirm something is true, we must have sufficient and credible scientific evidence. So does Buddhism have the necessary and sufficient evidence to confirm that Buddha existed? If we use Buddhist scriptures to assert that Buddha truly existed, there are discrepancies between the two major branches of Buddhism: Theravada, Southern Buddhism, and Mahayana, Northern Buddhism. For example, Mahayana records. Mahayana Buddhism states that Prince Siddhartha left home at the age of 19, spent 5 years seeking the path, and 6 years practicing austerities in the forest before attaining enlightenment at the age of 31. He taught for 49 years and passed away at the age of 80. His birth is commemorated on the 8th day of the 4th lunar month, his enlightenment on the 8th day of the 12th lunar month, and his death on the 15th day of the 2nd lunar month. Theravada records. Theravada Buddhism records that Prince Siddhartha left home at the age of 29. After a short period of seeking the path and 6 years of practicing austerities in the forest, he attained enlightenment at the age of 35. He taught for 45 years and passed away at the age of 80. His birth, enlightenment, and death are all commemorated on the 15th day of the 4th lunar month. Mahayana and Theravada followers each hold firmly to their own records and reject the records of the other. However, being truly objective, one cannot use Mahayana records to refute Theravada records, and vice versa. Neither set of records can be used to definitively prove or disprove the other. Is there scientific evidence to confirm Buddha's existence? Establishing the historical existence of Buddha requires a critical examination of both Buddhist scriptures and archaeological findings. Historians and archaeologists have discovered numerous ancient sites and artifacts in India and Nepal that support the existence of a historical figure who matches the life of Shakyamuni Buddha. Some key pieces of evidence include: 1. Lumbini inscription. An inscription discovered at Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha, records Emperor Ashoka's pilgrimage to this site. This inscription dates back to the 3rd century BCE, approximately 200 years after Buddha's passing, and is one of the earliest pieces of evidence indicating that Buddha was a real historical figure. Archaeological sites. Excavations at key sites associated with Buddha's life, such as Bodh Gaya, the place of enlightenment, Sarnath, where he delivered his first sermon, and Kushinagar, where he passed away, have revealed stupas, pillars, and relics that provide additional historical context. 3. Historical texts and records. Apart from Buddhist scriptures, historical texts from other cultures and neighboring countries also mention the existence of a wise teacher in India who founded a spiritual tradition, adding credibility to the claim of Buddha's historical existence. Despite these findings, absolute historical proof may still be lacking due to the passage of time and the limitations of ancient records. Nevertheless, the combination of archaeological discoveries and scriptural records strongly suggests that Shakyamuni Buddha was not merely a mythical figure, but a real person who made a profound impact on the spiritual and cultural history of India and beyond. Why is there this inconsistency? The only answer could be that there was no person named Siddhartha Gautama living at that time. If Prince Siddhartha truly existed as a Buddha, and he had stated the exact day, month, and year of his renunciation, then his followers, great sages, and many Indians, would have remembered it and passed it down with absolute precision for generations. The scriptures mention that when Shakyamuni Buddha attained enlightenment, he initially did not want to teach the truths he had realized. It was only after being requested by a Brahma deity that he decided to preach the Dharma he had realized. The Dharma that I have realized is profound, hard to see, hard to understand, serene, sublime, beyond all logic and reasoning, and subtle. It can only be comprehended by those who possess wisdom. However, these people are obsessed with desires, take delight in desires, and are dominated by desires. Therefore, it is difficult for them to comprehend this Dharma. We cannot take this detail to assert that Prince Siddhartha attained enlightenment, became a Buddha, and only began teaching after being requested by a Brahma deity. This is an illogical notion because Brahma is considered a mundane being, just like any other sentient being. Brahma has not experienced enlightenment, so how could he recognize a Buddha or know that someone has attained enlightenment, and then request them to teach the Dharma? In the scriptures, it is also mentioned that even Shariputra, an arhat known for his supreme wisdom, could not comprehend the mind of a Buddha, let alone an unenlightened being like Brahma. At the time when Prince Siddhartha attained supreme enlightenment, all beings, whether celestial or human, were still considered mundane beings. Thus, no one could know for sure that the prince had attained complete enlightenment. Even if he had declared, "I have become a Buddha," would unenlightened beings have believed it? Would they have accepted it? And who would have had the authority to officially recognize that he had become a Buddha? Why do the scriptures lack consistency? The inconsistency among scriptures raises a question. Could it be that ancient people created a fictional character to serve as a symbolic figurehead for personal interpretations, or as a collection of folklore that was synthesized into a religious doctrine? Such inconsistencies suggest that the image of Buddha may have been mythologized over time. The lack of unified details between Mahayana and Theravada traditions, for example, may point to variations in how his life story was transmitted orally before being written down. If there were a historical Buddha, why do these records conflict with each other? Moreover, the historical documentation and archaeological evidence about Buddha are also debated among scholars. There is a possibility that his image and teachings were constructed or embellished over time to fit the needs of the communities that followed him. This hypothesis does not necessarily discredit the moral and philosophical value of his teachings, but instead invites us to reflect on the nature of historical evidence, mythology, and faith. Regardless of whether Buddha's existence can be definitively proven or not, his teachings have shaped a significant part of world culture and philosophy. The stories and teachings attributed to him have provided moral guidance and inspiration for countless people. Whether as a historical figure or a symbolic embodiment of certain virtues and ideals, the Buddha's impact remains profound and enduring. This is something we can easily observe in the modern era. Many people have written books based on their own thoughts and then claimed that they were the words of Buddha. One Buddha's teachings contradict another Buddha's life events. If something is repeated many times, it may eventually be accepted as the truth. Below is a story about Buddha that most of us know. Shakyamuni Buddha was Prince Siddhartha, the son of Queen Maya and King Suddhodana of the Kapilavastu kingdom, which was part of ancient India in the 4th century BCE. One day, Queen Maya, who was about to give birth to her first child, dreamt of a radiant, beautiful white light shining upon her. A large white elephant came from the Golden Mountains and offered her a white lotus flower. When she awoke, Queen Maya shared her dream with the king, and he summoned wise men and sages to interpret it. They considered it a good omen, signifying that the child to be born would become a great sage. On April 8, 624 BCE, Queen Maya gave birth to Prince Siddhartha in Lumbini Garden. Overjoyed, King Suddhodana called upon saintly sages and spiritual teachers to bless his son and to predict his future. One day, a sage named Asita, who had come down from the Himalayas, requested to see the prince to offer his blessings. After seeing the prince, Asita wept. King Suddhodana asked why, and Asita replied that although the prince possessed the 32 auspicious marks and 80 excellent qualities, he would certainly become a fully enlightened being, a Buddha. Asita cried because by the time this happens, he would have already passed away and would not have the opportunity to hear the prince's teachings. With his exceptional intelligence and extraordinary strength, by the age of 12, Prince Siddhartha had mastered all forms of learning. One day, while walking through the 4 gates of the city, he encountered 4 sights: an old man, a sick person, a corpse, and a monk. He realized that all human beings, regardless of who they are, will experience birth, aging, sickness, and ultimately death. He deeply respected the image of the monk, who symbolized liberation and transcendence. He returned and saw the palace maidens lying naked, scattered and disheveled in their rooms, making him feel the impurity of human desires. Thus, he mounted his horse, Kantaka, and along with his charioteer, Chana, left the capital city in the middle of the night. When they arrived at the bank of the Anoma River, he cut his hair, bid farewell to his horse, removed all his jewelry and clothes, gave them to Chana, and sent him back to the palace. After studying under his first 2 teachers, Arata Kalama and Udaka Ramaputta, he entered a forest to practice extreme austerities along with the 5 ascetics known as the Kondanya brothers. After 6 years of severe self-mortification, his body weakened and he appeared as if he was on the brink of death. One day, he heard the sound of a celestial instrument played by Brahma Indra and realized that a lute string that is neither too tight nor too loose produces the best sound. At that moment, he discovered the path of moderation, the middle way. He began to eat normally again. This disillusioned the 5 ascetics, who then abandoned him to seek other places to continue their severe practices. Shakyamuni then sat in deep meditation for 49 days and nights under the Bodhi tree. During these 49 days, his inner self constantly battled with defilements such as anger, desire, doubt, pride, and even with the Mara king, who sent his demon armies to tempt and threaten him. In the end, on the 49th night, he attained enlightenment and saw clearly all his past lives in the 3 realms, a state known as Pubanivasayana. Simultaneously, he understood the entire essence of the universe and its structure, a state known as Dibakakunana. Through this, he comprehended the origins of all suffering and discovered the method to cure it, thereby liberating himself from the cycle of birth and death, achieving the ultimate freedom from samsara. On a full moon morning in April of 588 BCE, he attained complete enlightenment and became a fully enlightened Buddha, a Sammasambuddha. This is the story about him that most of us acknowledge. But where is the evidence? On November 25, 2013, an international team of archaeologists announced that they had found evidence revealing the exact birthplace of Buddha, suggesting that the origins of Buddhism could date back to the 6th century BCE, 2 centuries earlier than some other hypotheses. This discovery was announced after scientists conducted excavations at the Maya Devi Temple in the renowned Lumbini Garden area of Nepal, believed to be the birthplace of Buddha. The archaeological team discovered traces of an unknown wooden structure lying beneath a layer of brick foundation at the Maya Devi Temple. The results of radiocarbon analysis and molecular carbon dating from the carbonized materials and charred remains indicated that this structure existed in the 6th century BCE, 3 centuries earlier than the temple architecture built on top of it. Further analysis led archaeologists to find the roots of a large ancient tree at the center of this open architectural structure, providing evidence that closely aligns with the folklore about the Buddha's mother giving birth to him under the shade of a tree. Until now, most of the details regarding Buddha's life have originated from folklore, with very little scientific evidence. Following this discovery, UNESCO called for deeper archaeological research, as well as enhanced preservation and management of this area. The Lumbini Garden, located at the foot of the Himalayas between the borders of Nepal and India, is one of the 4 most significant sites in Buddha's life. This heritage area had been covered by forest until its rediscovery in 1896. The other 3 significant sites include 1. Bodh Gaya, Bodhi tree, where Buddha attained enlightenment. 2. Sarnath, Deer Park, where he delivered his first sermon. 3. Kushinagar, Kusinara, where Buddha entered final nirvana. These locations are considered the most important landmarks marking the life and teachings of the historical Buddha. The Maya Devi Temple, named after Buddha's mother, is located in Lumbini and serves as a pilgrimage site for hundreds of thousands of Buddhists each year. In late 2011, the Nepalese ambassador to South Korea, Kamal Prasad Koirala, wrote a 4-page letter to then-President Lee Myung-bak, requesting that he instruct the South Korean Ministry of Education to correct information about Buddha's birthplace in South Korean history textbooks. Specifically, a primary school ethics textbook in South Korea stated, "Buddha was born in the Kapilavastu Castle in India." A middle school world history textbook also mentioned, "Buddha was born into a Brahmin royal family, and his birthplace is India." However, Ambassador Koirala asserted that Buddha was actually born in Lumbini, which is part of Nepalese territory. With all humility, I urge you to consider the true birthplace of Buddha, which has been incorrectly written by scholars for a long time. Recognizing the significance and emotions of countless devotees, I take this opportunity to affirm the truth and humbly request the correction of this information. Ambassador Koirala wrote in the letter. He further mentioned that during the period when India was a British colony, some British individuals wrote that Buddha was born in India. And to this day, hundreds of millions of Buddhists around the world still believe this to be true. Ambassador Koirala clarified that, in reality, Buddha was born in the Lumbini rice-growing region, which is 107 kilometers southwest of the Nepalese capital, Kathmandu, and 32 kilometers from the Indian border. However, many scholars have continued to reference the old information found in British archives, causing confusion even today when people try to answer questions about the birthplace of Buddhism's founder. Because India was under British rule, British historians began to write the history of Buddha in English, stating that Buddha was born in India. This mistake did not occur without reason. In the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, many British historians remained uncertain about Lumbini's exact location. Ambassador Koirala added that even UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon expressed interest in developing Lumbini, as it is the birthplace of Buddha. He further mentioned that as of November 7, 2011, the British Museum had officially recognized Buddha's birthplace as being in Nepal. He expressed confidence that the South Korean president would consider this request so that South Korean students would not learn incorrect information and misunderstand the birthplace of Buddha. The South Korean leader welcomed Ambassador Koirala's suggestion and promised that the South Korean government would review the issue. According to Buddhist scriptures, it is recorded that Queen Maya was on her way back home to Ranggram, Nepal, when she went into labor. She reached Lumbini just as she was about to give birth. She bathed in a sacred pond, walked 25 steps to a nearby forest, and gave birth there. Buddha was born in 623 BCE, over 2,600 years ago. It took 9 months after the discovery for Nepalese officials to confirm that the commemorative stone marking the event was found exactly 25 steps away. It was discovered on a brick foundation dating back to the time of King Ashoka, who visited Lumbini 400 years after Queen Maya left the sacred pond and went into the forest to give birth. Additionally, several other pieces of evidence proving the existence of this great spiritual teacher have been found through the following instances. 1. Evidence from people who knew him personally. This evidence is engraved on stone tablets, stone pillars, and stupas erected in his honor. These memorials were created by rulers and some individuals who lived very close to his era, making it possible for them to verify the story of his life. Number 2, the discovery of historical sites and monuments. Various archaeological sites and heritage temples mentioned in these narratives have been uncovered, providing further validation of the historical accounts. 3. The Sangha, community of monks. The holy monastic community that Buddha founded has been maintained without interruption to this day. The Sangha has preserved the events of his life and his teachings, passing them down from generation to generation. In most regions around the world, the various Buddhist councils and assemblies of the Sangha have proven that his teachings were transmitted from master to disciple since his time and continue to be preserved to this day. 4th, after Buddha's parinirvana. After his passing, his physical body was cremated, and his relics, sharira, were divided among 8 kingdoms in India at that time. Each king built a stupa to enshrine the portion of relics they received. One portion of these relics was given to King Ajatashatru, who enshrined it in a stupa at Rajagriha. Nearly 2 centuries later, Emperor Ashoka took these relics and redistributed them throughout the country. The relics enshrined in these stupas, as well as in other stupas, are confirmed to be the relics of Buddha Gautama. The Mahavamsa, one of the most reliable and ancient texts in history that we know of today, provides detailed accounts of Buddha's life, Emperor Ashoka's reign, and all other dynasties related to the history of Buddhism. Fifth, records in Indian history. The golden pages of Indian history describe Buddha's life, his teachings, his service, and the customs, culture, and traditions of Buddhism. Sixth, historical records in other countries. 100 years after Buddha's parinirvana, we can find documented evidence in Buddhist countries such as Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Myanmar, China, Tibet, Nepal, South Korea, Mongolia, Japan, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos. This evidence has preserved the intact cultural, historical, religious, and literary heritage associated with Buddhism. Seventh, the Tripitaka, 3 baskets of sacred teachings. The Tripitaka is a comprehensive collection of Buddha's teachings over 45 years of preaching, serving as sufficient proof that Buddha was indeed a historical figure who truly existed in this world. Why do Buddhists believe that Shakyamuni Buddha existed? For Buddhists who are currently practicing, what is the reasonable answer to the question, did Shakyamuni Buddha really exist? The response is often, I believe Buddha existed. Emphasis is placed on the word believe rather than confirm or prove. The response, I believe Buddha existed, can be divided into 2 cases. Belief with right view, which is right faith. Belief with wrong view, which is superstition. Believing in the real existence of Buddha with right faith means that, after listening to teachings or studying scriptures, one gains a correct understanding of the principle of dependent origination. From there, they comprehend correctly that all phenomena, whether mental or physical, are impermanent, non-self, and not owned by anyone, which means they are anatta, non-self. They also gain a correct understanding of suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. After gaining listening wisdom, such a person continues to reflect, analyze, and apply the wisdom they have learned, comparing it with real-life experiences. They see that humanity has a certain understanding of mental and physical phenomena, and of the cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. But that these views are completely opposite to the truths that Buddha realized and taught. The person then sees that the Buddha's teachings are indeed profound and extraordinary. This understanding allows them to truly comprehend and develop a genuine faith in the Dharma. Once they have right faith in the Dharma, they can reason and conclude that the person who taught this profound and sublime Dharma must have been a remarkable individual, a fully enlightened being. As a result, right faith arises, believing that Buddha truly existed, because he taught this deeply profound and sublime Dharma. So, did Shakyamuni Buddha really exist? Yes, Buddha truly existed. He is not a legend or a fabricated story. However, the confirmation of Buddha's existence is only valid for individuals who have attained enlightenment. In Buddhist terminology, such a person is called an arhat. Only an arhat has the qualification to affirm that Buddha was real and that his teachings are indeed the true path. This affirmation of Buddha's existence comes from a deep-rooted faith based on personal realization and wisdom. The affirmation that Buddha truly existed is a process that requires practice and is only for the wise, not for everyone. It is for those who possess listening wisdom and reflective wisdom in full measure, enabling them to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. Only those who have personally experienced and verified the truth can affirm the reality of the cessation of suffering, nirvana, and the Four Noble Truths. Naturally, they also affirm that the person who taught the profound Dharma, which they have practiced and verified to be true, must be a fully enlightened being, Sammasambuddha. Thus, regardless of whether a historical Prince Siddhartha Gautama lived and attained enlightenment over 2,600 years ago in India or not, the truth remains forever unchanged. The one who taught that truth is our Shakyamuni Buddha.